right. I mean, you see this in this strange idea that's become current in among people obsessed with the internet, that the current god is KEK, K-E-K, Egyptian god of chaos, who is a frog. And the frog is something that doesn't fit into categories, right? Because it transmutes as it grows, because it starts as a tadpole, but it's half in the water and half on the land. And so, yeah, we're in a time of extreme chaos, and we're trying to sort out whether we're going to degenerate further into chaos, whether we're going to what would you call it, devolve into a state of strict order. That's the call from the right, I would say, or, in my estimation, whether or not we're going to follow the pathway of logos, which is the pathway that's laid forward in the ideas that I just described. Is that individuals have to confront the chaos with their own character and parse it back into habitable order. But that's a matter of individual characterological development, in my estimation, and that's the alternative to the radical left-wing postmodernist chaos and the call to a return to, restrictive nationalistic identities that's characteristic of the call from the right.
But
yes, it's a very dangerous time.
Yes, I mean the danger which may lie ahead may be tremendous. It's like a time where a whole worldview collapses in a way, and all the good things that postmodernity started with. I mentioned this are now tumbling down, and you said this in your book. Okay, the culture is always describable with these two archetypes: the good king and the bad tyrant. And now, when I see postmodernism, it's like, okay, feminism is eating its children now, and all.
Yeah, well, Tiamat has come back. Tiamat's a female god, right, in the Mesopotamian creation myth, and she decides to eat her children. That's what happens. She's tired of all the noise they're making. So it's like a feminist critique of the patriarchy. Fundamentally, that's what's acted out in the Enuma Elish. But the problem is that chaos is just as destructive a force as order. And the balance has to be struck between them. And I believe that, the classic story when chaos reigns is that the hero goes to the underworld to rescue his father. And what that means is that you go back into your culture and you find the values that have been lying dormant and you revivify them. And the value that's lying dormant in our culture is logos, essentially. Because that logos, the idea that logos was the ultimate deity, was criticized out of existence by the scientific revolution, roughly speaking. Because the scientists confused, and so did the religious people. The scientists and the religious people confused the idea of logos with a scientific description of a set of facts. And it's not. Look, one of the things that Piaget said was that when you look at the history of facts, you find that facts dissolve and change as time transforms. Now it's kind of a view that Thomas Kuhn shared. Now, that's not exactly true, because some facts are more robust across time than others. Like the idea that things are made of protons is a pretty damn robust fact, and it's true across almost all possible frames of reference. So Piaget was wrong, and so was Kuhn, I think, because they failed to take into account that some sets of propositions are more robust to transformation than others. But be that as it may, there is still the case that sets of facts tend to transform. And so that it's difficult to say what fact is permanent. But Piaget performed a sleight of hand in respect to that, and he said, okay, the facts themselves might not be able to be regarded as permanent, but the process by which we derive the facts is permanent. Okay, and he thought of that as this exploratory tendency that underlied the constructivist act. There's something in you that's constructing. Okay, well, that thing that's in you is a permanent fact. That's the logos. And the question is whether or not the fundamental question, and this is something Christianity has been putting forward as the cardinal question for thousands and thousands of years in imagistic and implicit form. Are you going to identify with the logos? That's the key to salvation. And the logos is the thing that uses communication to balance order and chaos.
Okay.
So, for example, in the classic dragon slayer type logos myths, the hero is the person who goes out beyond the confines of the community, comes into contact with the dangerous unknown, often given predatory form, because that's the circuit we use to conceptualize the unknown, and receives something of great value, which is then distributed to the community. Okay, that's the oldest. That's one of the oldest stories of mankind. You could think about that as the central story of mankind. It's the expression in narrative of our evolved being. And then there's an adjunct to that story, which is, well, sometimes the hero goes out and confronts chaos and generates order. But sometimes the hero goes out and confronts a too rigid order, demolishes it, and recasts it. And so, like the Mesopotamian hero, for example, that's Marduk, is basically a St. George dragon slayer type. But Christ is more of a social reformer.
Okay.
Even though Yahweh in the Old Testament is more like Marduk. He's the force, the logos force that creates order out of chaos using the divine word. But when Christ emerges on the mythological scene, let's say, he opposes the tyrannical state and poses the notion that its adherence to truth and to spoken truth and orientation towards the highest good that's actually superordinate to the state. And that makes the state subordinate to the individual, to the logos element of the individual. And that's the fundamental proposition upon which Western culture rests.